Oh, hey, that took me by surprise a little bit. Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing? See that my camera is just slightly off angle here. Let me see if I can get this put a little bit more the way I like it. It doesn't look like I'm going to get it. That's all right. Happy Monday. How's everybody doing? Hope you are all fantastic today. Whew, what a day. Been 9 o'clock in the morning. Already feels like it's been a day. But hope you guys are doing fantastic. And I heard a story this weekend that I kind of want to start the day off with, but I also want to, let's get rid of all of this for a second. No, that's not what I wanted to do either. Come on. There we go. So I'm probably not going to be able to tell this story as good as the person that I heard tell it this weekend, but I thought it was a fitting way to start Monday. So I want you guys to imagine in the old days when there was, kingdoms and peasants and all of that stuff going on, that there is this peasant. And I can't, man, like I said, this story, I'm probably going to butcher this story. But there's this peasant that helps the king. And I don't even remember exactly what he does, but he does something that the king super appreciates what this peasant did. Like he saves one of the king's children's lives, or does something that really benefits the king and helps the king. And so the king, what he did doesn't really matter to the story, but the king in the story asked this man, is there anything in the world that I can do for you? If there's anything that I can do, please just let me know. And so this peasant is, likes golf, and he's never had a golf club. So he tells the king, I would love, just a custom golf club. And the king says, done. It'll take a couple of weeks, and we'll get it. I'll get that for you. And so a couple of weeks later, the king sends for the peasant. So the peasant is sitting in his hut, and all of a sudden this, chariot shows up with these majestic horses, and just this velvet lined chariot, just unbelievable, beautiful, horse and carriage shows up. And, one of the king's servants, comes out and tells the peasant, please come with me. The king wants to present you with your golf club. He's so appreciative to you. And so the peasant goes, and he gets in the chariot, and there's water and wine and some, a tray of snacks, some cheese, and just, unbelievable. The peasant has never been treated like this any time in his whole life. And so, they take the horse and buggy, they go back to the kingdom. They get to go right in through the great, the huge gates open up, and he gets to go into this kingdom, the private kingdom of the king. He's never been inside the walls of the actual, palace. And, so he goes in, and there's water flowing everywhere, and it's just beautiful, beautiful flowers, and, streets of, lined with jewels and gold and stuff. And anyways, they get all the way into where, the kingdom is. He gets out of the chariot, and the king comes out and greets him, and, gives him some fine clothing to put on and stuff. And long story short, they go walking through the palace, and he's wondering when he's going to get this golf club. And all of a sudden they go walking out, the king kind of makes this random left-hand turn, and they kind of go out the backside of this palace. And, it's just an immense, piece of land that the king lives on. And all of a sudden they walk for a little while on this beautiful, manicured, landscaped path. And all of a sudden they kind of come over this hill, And there is this just unbelievable building sitting there. And the peasant wonders what in the heck is going on? What is this? And so as they get closer to it, you know, the king says, "Here is your golf club." And he presents him with this majestic building, and they go walk inside this golf club. And the king says, "Over here is like the restaurant where you can take your friends and you guys can enjoy, you know, a few drinks and food before or after you go play golf. Over there is an incredible like locker room. There's a bathroom, places where you can get changed and take showers and whatever you need to do. And over here is, you know, like the golf shop where you can go in and you can buy and do, you know, have custom clubs made. And out back, if we go through the back of this, there's an incredible 18-hole golf course that I added to your golf club." And so, guys, the illustration of this story is sometimes, as peasants, if you will, we forget the awesome, incredible, mighty God that we serve. And sometimes we don't realize the full blessings of God and what he has in store for us. This young man would have just been excited with an actual golf club that he could play some golf with. But the king had a whole different mindset. When this guy asked for a golf club, the king's mindset went to this incredible private club. And guys, I just want, this illustration hit me as so powerful, because I think in life, so often we're just going through life hoping for a club, hoping for a putter, hoping for a new driver. And God wants to give us the whole golf club. And so hopefully that is a powerful illustration to you. And part of it kind of goes back to, sometimes I don't think we're dreaming big enough. I don't think we realize what God really has in store for us here on this earth, what is really, truly possible. And, I just wanted to share that with you guys. And it made me realize that even though I feel like I'm a pretty big dreamer a lot of times, that there's also a small-mindedness to me in a lot of areas of my life. And the longer I'm around this old earth, it's been 52 years and change now, I realize that the only limitations that there really are in my life are the ones that I put on them myself. And I believe that that is so true of many, many, many of us on this planet. And I think part of that is because we've been lied to, we've been deceived. If you go back and look at, especially here in the United States, if you go back and look at the last, 200 years, 150 years, the powers that be, the elite of our country, have manufactured a lifestyle for Americans that basically ensures that they get to stay elite. And it's a pretty interesting concept. My wife and my son and I were just driving in the car a few minutes ago. My son had to drop off his car to get an oil change and do a few things, so we took him and dropped him off, and then we went and got some coffee, and we came back to the house. And on the way back to the house, we were talking. I came across a TikTok or a Instagram reel not too long ago that talked about, where in the world did we get this idea? Especially, I want to, preface, I don't know other ethnicities, other countries, exactly how it works and what you guys do. So I don't want this to feel like a blanket statement. And if this isn't your culture, then please don't be offended. But here in the United States, it's very common for parents to kind of kick their kids out of the house at 18, 19, 20 years old and be like, go build your own life. Go do your own thing. We're tired of being responsible for you. It's time for you to become an adult and live your own life. And this Instagram that I saw really made me wonder about that, because we just accept it as a norm here in America. In fact, I'll never forget my mom, my dad, and my stepmom, when they got together. My biological parents split up when I was about 13 or so, and long story short, when I was about 18, I'm trying to figure out how. So it's a weird situation. I'm trying to figure out why. So my parents technically split up and got divorced when I was around 13, 14 years old. But it was weird. My mom moved out and my dad and I lived in a house together. My mom went and got her own place. But it was this weird relationship where they lived separate, but they kind of dated for the next handful of years. They weren't married any longer, but they weren't seeing other people. And they would still spend, time together. It was like a in-between period where there was some possibility that maybe they were going to work it out. But long story short, when I was about 18, it totally came to an end. And not too long after that, my dad got together with my stepmom. And long story short, at one point in time, we all moved in. My stepmom had, 2 daughters that were a little younger than me. We're all within about 3 years of each other. But anyways, we all moved into my stepmom's house. And I was technically the oldest at about 18-ish, 18 and a half. And I was told, like, the rule in the house was when you're 19, you have to move out. So sure enough, July 30th was coming up. My 19th birthday was coming up. And I kept being reminded, hey, you got to be out of the house by the time you are 19. And it was just accepted. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think that they were being bad guys or anything like that. But long story short, this video really made me question that, because think about it, guys. What happens to an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old when they have to move out on their own? Well, just like my son said in the car, well, now, they got to pay rent. And it's another person paying electric. It's another person, getting, internet. A lot of times you got to get a car payment. You're going to need now, you need new car insurance when your children live with you. Like, we're all on the same car insurance policy here in this house. My son is on our car insurance. If he moves to another residence outside of our home, he's technically supposed to get his own car insurance. So it creates consumers. And so I really believe, the more that I think about it, it makes sense that here in the United States, the reason that we want to kick our kids out, or not kick our kids out, but the reason that we think this idea of, hey, go move out and live on your own and get your own place and be responsible, and it's all in the name of being responsible and building your own life. But it really was brainwashed into us by the elite that want us to have another rent payment, another car insurance payment, another payment, and building the economy. And I believe that there is a lot of truth to that. My daughter moved out when she was 18, 19 because she just wanted to, not because we made her. My son is a little over 19. He still lives with us and he's not feeling any pressure to move out. But at the same time, I even have a little bit of that inside of me where I'm thinking to myself, man, I kind of want him to move out in a sense because of this idea of it's time for him to strike out on his own and become his own man and build his own life. But in this Instagram post, the people that posted it, they have like 10 kids, and a lot of them are adults, and they don't force their children to move out until they get married. They don't have any children living in their home that are married, but up until the point that their children get married, they are welcome, to stay at home. And it kind of, I thought, you know what, that's pretty cool. That family unit. Think about, I don't know about you guys, but you know, I grew up with two sisters in my household. Me and my two older sisters. You know, one lives in San Diego, one lives in Arkansas. I live in Arizona. The last time that me, my two sisters, and my mom or my dad, because obviously they weren't together as we got to be adults, but the last time that my two siblings and I spent a holiday together, all three of us, I don't even remember. It was probably, I think my older sister was 6 years older than me, 7 years older than me. So when I was 12, she turned 18, graduated from high school, went into the Navy. I honestly don't remember a time in my life where from the time that I was 12 years old that the two siblings and myself ever got together for a holiday. And I thought, man, that's too bad. You know, my sister has two children. I've got a niece and a nephew from my sister Kim. I don't know either one of them hardly at all. I can probably count the number of times that I've seen them. I mean, when they were real little, I saw them a little bit more, but like in the last 30 years, I don't think I've seen my nephew Brandon, who now would be probably, I don't know, he's probably, I was maybe 15, 16, 17 when he was born. So he's 34, 35, 36. I don't know, somewhere in there. I've probably seen him once, maybe twice in the last 30 years from the time that he was 5 years old, maybe seen him once. Same thing with my niece. You know, my other sister, Shannon, you know, she moved to Las Vegas for a while. So I got to see them a little bit more often. I don't even know where I'm going with this, guys, but I think part of the reason, at least in America, that we've kind of lost our way a little bit and we're having so much difficulty in the world is because the family unit has been destroyed. And part of the reason for that is because of this belief that we have where all of our kids need to move out and become self-sufficient, fully efficient adults as quickly as possible. Like as parents, we're like, okay, we got you to 18, go live life, do everything on your own. And I honestly don't feel like, the more I look into it, that is biblical either. You know, it talks about in the Bible leaving your children's children an inheritance. And that kind of goes back to so often in the Christian doctrine and the Christian principles. A lot of Christians are raised and believe that that like it's honorable to be poor as a Christian. Like you shouldn't have too much. There's a lot of Christians, we've talked about this many times on the show, where, man, like how much money do you want? Well, just enough to get by. You know, I'm not greedy. I don't need this. I'm okay with this. You know, I don't need the big mansion. I'm just okay with a small house. I don't need the Mercedes convertible. I'm okay with, you know, the Honda Accord or whatever. I'm not picking on Honda Accords, but this settle for lifestyle. And it's because people feel like, especially as Christians, like we're not supposed to want wealth and riches and to have, you know, an extreme amount of means. And I don't think that that's biblical either. There are a lot of places in the Bible where it talks about wealthy people. You know, Solomon was probably the wealthiest person on the planet. He was a man of God. There's been a lot of wealthy people in the Bible that were godly men. And so the Bible can't contradict itself. God can't lie. So if something is true in the Bible, it can also not be like untrue. So yes, there are passages in the Bible where it says, you know, money is the root of all kinds of evil. But people get that mistaken all the time. People will quote that verse as money is the root of all evil, That's not what it says. Money is the root of all kinds of evil. It doesn't say money is the root of evil. There's a lot of different evils in there. How do you know that's true in life? Because, you know, I don't want to be too graphic here on this show, but most of the time there's a lot of, you know, physical types of crimes, you know, abuse on women and that type of thing. That don't have anything to do with money. So if there are evils in the world that aren't money motivated, well, then money can't be the root of all evil, because the word all is all encompassing. So if money isn't the root of all evil, then, you know, then we can get past that. We can say, okay, money's not the root of all evil. Money is the root of all kinds of evil. All kinds of different evil are rooted in the love of money. And it also says that too, that the love of money. It doesn't just say that money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money. So when you make money an idol, see you guys later, love you. When you say that the love of money, when you love money more than you love people, then yeah, you're willing to do all kinds of things to get that money that go against, you know, godly principles. So don't get me wrong. There's definitely some evil that comes from the love of money. But it's not the root of all evil. And once again, even if you go back and look at the book of Genesis, before there was any need for money, God talked about, go read it yourself. God talked about gold multiple times in the book of Genesis. And for those of you that don't know, Genesis is the very first book of the Bible. It starts off in the beginning of Genesis, talking about how God made the heavens and the earth. Hey, come on, guys. Sorry, the two puppies have grown up loving to chase the cats around. Most of my dogs don't even, you know, they've been with cats their whole lives. They're not even like a blip on the radar screen. But the two puppies, which are now like 6 months old, love to torture the cats. So apologize for that. But I don't even know how this got to be the topic today. You know, in full transparency, like I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about today. Is another one of those days where I really didn't have a huge topic on my mind. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to talk about. I knew I wanted to, you know, tell you guys that story, but I didn't really know where the rest of the you know, talk was going to go. But you know, it kind of goes back, I guess, you know, we've talked about this before, but maybe it could just never be talked about too much. And that is the fact that if you believe that being rich makes that rich people are greedy, that rich people got that way because they take advantage of other people, that if wealthy people are inherently, you know, bad people, you're never going to get wealthy yourself. Like, you have to get rid of that mindset. There are a lot of incredible wealthy people. I know many people that live off of 10% of their income, and they give away 90% of their money to charity and to causes that they believe in. In fact, the more I'm around this old earth and the more I'm around more successful people, the more I believe that that is a really incredible path. So we start off in this world normally needing 100% of what we have for us. And, you know, in the Bible, it talks about tithing and offering and giving and being generous. And a lot of people of the Christian faith believe that that number is about a 10% number. So let's say that you start off in life. Oh, I was going to say, what in the world is that? It's 9:30.
It's currently 9:30 a.m.
I love that alarm. But let's just say that, you know, as a Christian, you start off in life at 90-10. You live off of 90 and you're giving 10. I think there's a lot of generous people out there that as they go through life and they start creating more and more wealth, one of their goals is to go from 90 for them and 10 to give, to 85 for them. 85, I guess I should go down. 85 and 15, and then 80 and 20, and 70 and 30. And seriously, guys, I know some incredible people. They don't go around bragging about it. It gets talked about in more private circles and in small, smaller things. They're not bragging about it from stages. But I know a lot of people that live off of 10, 20, 30% of their income, and they're giving away 70, 80, 90% of their income. So once again, it comes back to money is a tool. No different than a hammer. A hammer can be used to build a house. A hammer can also be used to destroy a life. If somebody wants to use a hammer to do harm to another person, they can do so very, very quickly. But the hammer isn't the problem. The hammer is just a tool. And money is very much the same way. Money is just a tool. If you are poor or broke or in financial, a bad financial position, but you're generous still, you still find ways to help other people and to give, that just means that when you get rich, you're going to really be generous and really be incredibly financially generous. On the flip side, it doesn't flip when you have money. If you are broke and you are greedy and you are not generous, you're stingy, I promise you that's not going to change as you make more money. There are plenty of greedy, wealthy, stingy people that won't do good for other people no matter how much money they have. But once again, that's not the money's fault. That's our own heart. And that's why God wants us to work on our heart. And I firmly believe there's a lot of people out there in this world that one of the main reasons they never get wealthy is because they have a stingy, greedy heart. And God knows that they're not going to bless anybody but themselves with that wealth. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to be generous to get wealthy. There's a lot of bad people out there that do get wealthy. But I'm still telling you, mindset wise, like if you're driving down the road and you see somebody in a Ferrari and your first thought is, oh, that guy probably, stole a bunch of money from people, or that guy's greedy, or that guy's a bad person, like you immediately dislike that person just because they're driving a Ferrari, I'm telling you, you're never going to get wealthy. You can have a picture of a Lamborghini or a Range Rover or Ferrari, whatever you want up on your wall, your dream board. But when you see somebody else in a car like that, if your immediate thought is that they were greedy, that they took advantage of people to get there, you're not going to ever get there yourself, because we won't allow ourselves to do something like that makes us feel bad. So if you inherently think that having money is bad, you can logically wish you had more, but you're never going to do the things in life that will get you the more. And if somehow you get lucky and you do something in life that does create a bunch of money that you're not used to, you'll sabotage yourself and you'll get rid of it, because in your mind, subconsciously, you're going to feel like you're a bad person, or like you're greedy, or all of those other things that you think about other people. All right, let's see what we got going on here in the chat. Yeah, he just wanted a golf club to play with, but the king gave him his own private golf club. Yep. Deadwood, I'll take a Honda over the Mercedes any day. Why? Cost effectiveness on maintenance and reliability. Yeah, but once again, Deadwood, I love you, brother. And if you love Hondas, great. But when you say that, and I don't want to offend you if you're still listening, but that's not an abundance mindset. Who cares about the cost effectiveness if you've got tens or hundreds of millions of dollars? Like, I'm not saying that I want to go out and buy every supercar in the world as I get financially, wealthier. There's some cars that I do want and some nice things that I do want, but I also think, like, when we did when we did this build for Homes for Hope, we were able to build somebody a house in Mexico for about $22,000, totally transform and change their life. So I'm thinking, okay, if I buy, a $40,000 Honda versus a $200,000 Mercedes, then I can build, whatever, 6 people a house and have a car. And I understand that, but I am not going to not own a Mercedes because the car insurance on it costs $1,000 a month, and on a Honda it's only $100, because that is a lack of abundance. My wife and I are always talking about, hey, where do we want to live? Well, like the part of Arizona that we live in right now, we could go buy 10 acres and probably build a really nice house on 10 acres here in Arizona for, well, I wouldn't call it a mansion, like a real nice house, but we could literally probably buy like 10 acres and get a nice, 3-4 bedroom manufactured home, brand new, for $250,000. Or in some parts of the world, that might cost us $2 million. Well, I'm not going to do the $250,000 option because I don't feel like I'm ever going to have the ability to do the $2 million. I tell my wife all the time, hey, let's quit trying to base where we want to live and how we want to live on how much money it's going to cost, because God can take care of everything. Like I said, we're just to go back to the golf club. Like, we are asking for a golf club. We're asking for a Honda, but God wants to give us a Lamborghini. And, once again, like I understand if you don't want to spend $300,000 on a car because there's other things you want to do with the money, but like, that's like going to a restaurant and you don't, like I've always said, one of my favorite things about life when I was really financially doing the best is not caring what something cost. Like, not caring. Like, literally you go, okay, you know how you go to a nicer restaurant? Anybody ever been to a nicer restaurant and, like at the bottom of the menu, it talks about like lobster and crab and it says market price. Like, it doesn't give you the price on the menu. It's like market price. If you have to ask the waiter or waitress, how much is market price today? Then you can't afford it. Just go get the hamburger or the steak. But like, I want to live a life where I just say, yeah, I'm in the mood for crab. Give me the crab. And I don't care if it's $50 right now or $250. It doesn't make a difference, because I've got so much wealth that those types of things don't matter. You realize you get to a certain point in life. I don't know exactly what the number is, but let's call it 10 million. I think you get to $10 million, and the difference between 10 million and 15 or 20 million doesn't change your life. Even the difference between 10 million and 100 million really doesn't make that much of a difference in your life, unless you're looking at like luxury yachts or like, private jets. But in the grand scheme of things, whether you have 10 million or 100 million, you can pretty much afford, any car. You can pretty much afford, 90% of the real estate on the property. And with $10 million in your pocket, especially if you're using it to make money and do things with, you can go eat whatever you want to eat every day, all day long, and never, basically run out of money. And so I don't necessarily care if you want the Mercedes or want the Honda, but I want you to want the Honda for the right reasons. And in my opinion, wanting it because it's more cost effective is, once again, placing the governor on your life. It's smaller thinking than in my opinion we should have on this planet. We should have abundance mindset and believe that we can. Will you knock it off over there? I'm trying to have a YouTube stream here, guys. Mindset is everything. And in my opinion, if you have a Honda mindset, that you're never going to create the abundance in your life to where you have the choice. Like if you create the lifestyle and you've got the money for the Lamborghini, but you decide to use the money for a Honda because you want to do other things with the money, great. But go create the lifestyle that will afford you the Lamborghini. But I'm telling you, Deadwood and everybody else that's listening, if you right now, when I talk about wanting a Honda or wanting a Lamborghini, if you immediately go, well, I just want the Honda because it's more cost effective, odds are you're probably not ever going to have the money in your life to have the Lamborghini. It just is what it is, guys. Like, if I'm talking about, the $1 million mansion and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'd rather just have, a little double wide mobile home because it's so much more cost effective, you're probably never going to be able to afford the $1 million mansion. And once again, I don't care whether you own the $1 million mansion or if you own the $200,000 little piece of land with a mobile home on it. I just don't want you to own the mobile home because that's all the bigger that you can think in your mind. And that's all you can wrap your mind around and believe that you can have and that you want. I don't want you to settle for the $200,000 mobile home because you don't feel like you'll ever be in a position to own the $1 million mansion. Once again, the settle for lifestyle. I don't want you to settle. I know a lot of wealthy people that fly coach, and it's not because they're trying to save money. I have one wealthy person that used to own his own private jet, and now he flies coach because he wants to meet more people. He wants to have an experience and get to know more people. He's also the type of person, even though he's worth hundreds of millions, that when he goes on trips and he gets in a car with an Uber, he says he gets to know the Uber driver better than probably 99% of the Uber passengers. So even though he's worth hundreds of millions, he doesn't sit back in the backseat of the Uber car believing he's too good and not wanting to befriend the Uber driver. In fact, when he has, like his social media guy or people with him, they will vouch that he is almost over the top, like asking questions. He'll get to know that Uber driver so well by the time he gets to where he's going that he knows how many kids they have and that they're going to college, they're doing this and doing that. So long story, my point is, yeah, he flies coach now, even though he can afford to fly in the private jet. He's had both, and now he chooses coach, and that's cool. If you want to choose coach, go fly coach, but don't fly coach because you don't have the capacity to dream big enough and to believe that you can afford private. So what time is it? 9:43. We've been talking for almost an hour. What's going on in your lives, guys? How are you really doing today? How are you? I love you guys. Why am I getting emotional here? I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. The longer here that I'm on this planet, really trying to figure out what it's all about and how can I give you guys the most value? How can I hopefully be a little tiny part of your story a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like I can honestly say that Ed Milet changed my life. Well, who in the world is Ed Milet? Well, Ed Milet is an entrepreneur, businessman that's had incredible success in his life. And he puts out a video every Tuesday and every Thursday. And I've been watching his video that he puts out every Tuesday and every Thursday for probably about 5 years now. And he's one of my favoriteest people on the planet. I hope that someday, maybe even some of you can say it already. Hopefully I've been instrumental and helped some of you. Maybe some of you maybe your marriage got saved, or you just have a better marriage. Maybe the relationship with your kids, Murdoch, quit it. Maybe your relationship with your kids is better. Maybe you've financially expanded your mindset. Like, I want to have an impact on you guys, but I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and it's still kind of been there. Like, I'm like soul searching, trying to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? The reason I bring it up is there's a few YouTubers out there. A guy named Chico Crypto is one of them. If you have ever heard of Chico Crypto, put a 1 in the chat. Do you guys remember Chico Crypto? I never forget that back in like 2017, he was one of the first people that my mentor introduced me to in the crypto space. But long story short, if you go look at Chico Crypto's channel, he's got, 350, 450, 500,000 subs. He hasn't made a YouTube video for a long time. So why? Well, I never understood that. Like, I try to figure out, he's got a huge following. He's got this YouTube channel. Why did he quit doing it? And I'll tell you, in my opinion, like, there comes a point where sometimes I go to myself, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, sometimes it doesn't feel like the impact that I want to have that I'm having. And there's also, probably some selfishness. Like, I think to myself, like, what would I rather maybe be doing during that time, and different things. But like, just recently, I used the everybody's got their catchphrase. There's a poker guy that I watch that does like a poker vlog, and his catchphrase is the flop, or like the very favorable. He uses the word favorable a lot. And so he even created a clothing line called Favorable. I feel like one of my catchphrases is in full transparency. But in full transparency, my wife and I were driving home from Las Vegas yesterday. We went out to Las Vegas for an event. We're driving home. And I'm telling my wife, you know what? I'm not enjoying the YouTube channel anymore. Like, it's kind of becoming a chore. It's getting to be something that I'm not looking forward to. But I keep telling myself, man, I don't think God wants me to quit either, because I have a platform. I have the ability to change and help a lot more people through my presence on YouTube than I would if I just went back to being a person that didn't have a YouTube channel. So I feel like, come on, you guys, Murdoch, seriously. I feel like in order to be obedient to God and to really serve my purpose here on this earth, like, I need to keep this YouTube channel alive and growing. But there's other times where I'm like, why aren't you enjoying this more? Why aren't you having more fun? Why are you, dreading Monday morning and having to hop on this live stream Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning? Like, I've been faking it pretty well. Oh, for goodness sake. I'm kind of glad you're home, though, because Murdoch somehow decided that he wanted to get in on the fun with the puppies. So he's been making a ton of noise in the background and stuff. So hopefully now that you're back, we can get the dogs situated. I don't know, my audience may or may not even be noticing them in the background, but they've been driving me crazy the whole time you were gone. But I don't even know like how I got on this tangent, what it means, but I guess, like, part of what I try to do is just be real with you guys and try to share, what's really going on in my life and what's going on, because I do believe, as I taught, a couple of weeks ago, that the person that I am most equipped to help in my life is the person that is going through the challenges and the things that I went through at one point in time. So, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some of you watching this today that are wondering, like you're tired of what you're doing in your life. And you're wondering, like, hey, is it time for me to go find something new? Time for me to, in my case, is it time for me to fold up the YouTube channel, move on to another season in my life? For you, maybe, is it time for me to finally, start that business that I've been wanting to start? I know this much, guys, life is too short. The some days of your life will never come true. Someday is a pipe dream that never comes true. Those of you that are going to retire someday, those of you that are going to start your own business someday, some of you that are going to go enjoy, your dream vacation someday, I'm telling you, the world has a cruel way of making someday never, ever, ever come up. So in my life, what I actually think is happening, I think that there is a big breakthrough coming. So one of the nice things about being around successful people and people that are doing better in life than me is when I have the opportunity to be around them and I tell them some of the things that I'm going through. One of them basically said something to me that really had a huge impact. He said, Brad, you are on the verge of an incredible breakthrough. And so I choose to think that this time in my life where I'm questioning everything, questioning what I should be doing, questioning whether or not I should continue the YouTube channel, questioning. I think a lot of that is just the devil trying to get in there. The devil is starting to see this godliness that is being poured into me because I'm around some incredibly godly people. My relationship with God, like I mentioned back in June, my relationship with God and my boldness, I might not be a Charlie Kirk yet. And I say yet, but, I'm a lot closer to a Charlie Kirk now than I was 3 or 4 months ago, and it's just growing stronger. And I think that there's some devil getting in there. The devil does not want me to be a mighty man of God and to bring and lead people to Jesus and to be a mighty man for the kingdom of heaven on this earth. What's one of the ways the devil can stunt my growth, can stunt my reach, to get me believing that the YouTube channel isn't what I should be doing. Like, so in full transparency, see, there it is again. In full transparency, I'm not quitting the YouTube channel. I only brought that up to let you guys know just kind of like what's going on in my life and the struggles that I'm going through. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of influencers make is they try to act like everything is great in their life. Like, you're not going to want to follow them if you know that they're having, financial struggles. You're not going to want to follow them if they, admit that their, relationship with their spouse isn't as great as you might think it is, or so on and so forth. And I really believe that it's the exact opposite. I don't think you guys want to go listen to somebody where their life is just perfect all the time, because inherently we know that's not true. I don't care who they are on here. I don't care if it's Grant Cardone, billionaire. He has fights with his wife. He has moments with his children where they say they hate him. Like, he has financial problems. Just because he's a billionaire doesn't mean that he doesn't have financial problems, because as you grow in wealth, you also grow the things that you do and the money and the things that you put on the line. So a lot of us are going through life wishing that our problems would go away. And I guess a little bit about what today is about is quit wishing that your problems would go away, because that's not going to happen. Your problems will go away when you die. When you die and go to heaven, hopefully you're going to heaven. If you die and go to heaven, your problems go away. Until then, you're going to have problems. You're going to have challenges. There's going to be things in your life that you are needing to work through. It's just inevitable. So quit wishing that your problems would go away. And as Jim Rohn would say, wish that you were better at solving your problems, because a huge part of success in life is just that, getting better at solving the problems that you're going through. And the bigger the problem you can solve, the more money you're going to make. And once again, this isn't a dig on people, but like, if you are a bagger at a grocery store, you don't get paid a whole lot of money because it doesn't take a whole lot of problem solving skills in order to figure out how to put the groceries that are getting scanned into the bags. So, hey, I never was a checker or like a bagger at a grocery store, but there's a lot of teenagers that are, and it's not a bad job to start with. But I'm just saying, like, if you want to get paid like the owner of the franchise, you have to learn skills. The guy that is bagging the groceries at the grocery store, if somebody all of a sudden told him, hey, you are now the owner, that person 99% of the time would go out of business, or they would incredibly quickly learn a bunch of skills, because in order to run a grocery store and to be able to hire employees and keep the grocery store stocked and all of the things that it takes to run a grocery store, the average person that's working there as a bagger has no idea. Well, guess what? The guy that owns the grocery store doesn't have any idea how to do that when he was 16 either. They grew in life. They grew their skill set. They grew their mindset. They became the person that could handle owning the grocery store. So if you feel right now like your life, you're stuck in the bagging of the grocery store, maybe you're doing a little bit better in life. Maybe you feel like you're the checker in the grocery store. You're a little bit higher up on the totem pole. You're making more money, but you're still nowhere near the owner of the grocery store. Maybe you even are the manager of the grocery store. I'm telling you guys, the guy that is the general manager of the Safeway in my area, if all of a sudden somebody told him, you own this store, he would probably panic, or she would probably panic. They have no idea how to actually run the whole grocery store just because they were managing one. So maybe you're really doing better in life and you are the manager of the grocery store in your life, but you still have to learn skills and you have to grow and you have to become the person that can own the grocery store. And my point is, you're going to have challenges and struggles, and things are going to come up. If you're not having a financial struggle in your life, hallelujah, one's probably coming. And if you are having a financial struggle in life, hallelujah, because you're learning and growing through that to where you can get to the next level in your finances. But I'm telling you, if you're somebody right now that's making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, and you learn the skills and you break through and you get to $150,000 a year, that's going to be a whole new set of struggles and challenges that you need to be able to learn how to deal with 150 when you were used to 50. And when you get to the 150 level, in order to get from 150 a year to $1 million a year, you're going to have to become a different person. You're going to have to grow and learn new skills and get better in life. And that's why a learning mindset is so important, folks. You should never get to a point in your life where you feel like you have arrived, where you feel like you've got it all figured out, because you don't. And the moment that you start believing that you do is the moment that you quit learning. And that is the moment that most people really start to go into a decline and start to have some amazing challenges coming in their life. Because I'm telling you, when you go from 50,000 a year to 150,000 a year, most of you are going to start living on closer to $150,000 a year. Very few of you are going to go from $50,000 a year in income to 150 and keep a $50,000 a year lifestyle. Well, guess what? When you go from a $50,000 lifestyle to a $150,000 lifestyle, and then because you weren't the person, you got to 150 through some luck, not through skills that you learned. You get to the 150 and you're not ready for it, and you then grow your expenses to 150, and then your income goes back to 50. That's when you really get to learn some stuff about financial struggles. So like those of you that are making 50 or making 100 and you're struggling living paycheck to paycheck, and you think that more money would be the answer to all of your problems, there's going to be a lot of you that are going to go double, triple, quadruple what you're used to. And then because you didn't learn the skills and become the men or women that you needed to be to handle that, are going to go backwards to what you were used to. And then you're going to start wishing for your old financial problems. Now, in my life, I can tell you that happened to me. There's been many times over the last handful of years that I wished for my old financial problems, because the financial problems that were created by me making, a couple million in crypto and then not being fully prepared to handle that and spending way more of it than I should have, and also not realizing all of the profits. That whole 2 million wasn't realized profits by a long shot. I round tripped more of it than I should have. I guarantee you the last 2 or 3 years of my wife and I's financial life has been way more challenging than when we both just worked. When I was a poker dealer at the Venetian and she was, she worked at the Venetian too. When we both just had jobs, we were struggling financially. We were living paycheck to paycheck. We wondered sometimes how we were going to, provide the way that we wanted to. But I promise you, the struggles that we had back then when we felt like we were broke, compared to the struggles that we've had over the last 3 years when we felt like we got to be in a pretty wealthy state, and then we had it decline a bunch and have had to make things different and go through life without that paycheck. There's a lot of you that, have this job and you want to just quit and be your own business owner. Well, I tell you, I love that idea. I want you to own your own businesses, but I'm telling you, be prepared. You think that when you have the job, you've got all these problems. People are telling you what to do and so on and so forth. And I agree. But I promise you, if you just quit your job and start a business, the challenges that you're going to have in your life, you're going to wish that you had the challenges that you had when you were just an employee again. But if you grow through those challenges and get through them, are able to endure the pain and go through the growing curve that you need to go through in order to make that business successful, there will come a time when you are so grateful that you started your own business or did your own thing, and that you didn't quit because it got too hard and go back to being an employee. But there's going to be a period of time where you wonder about your sanity. You're like, why in the world did I want to own my own business? You will go through that as a business owner. I guarantee it. I don't think there's been a business owner in the history of business owners that didn't wonder why in the world they didn't just keep their job. Like, seriously, owning a business is not for the faint of heart, but I still love it. I think that all of you would benefit from owning a business. But having said that, I'll tell you, in my opinion, most people are way better off doing the job and then starting their business part-time. Even if it's a full-time business, I say you're better off working 80 or 90 hours a week, 40 hours for your job, 40 hours for your business, and keep that job until the business actually takes off. It's much easier to go through the struggle and to learn the things that you need to do and get through those things financially. Much easier if you still have the solid, steady income. One of my favorite influencers, a guy named Brad Lee, he had to go back to work a couple of times. He didn't quit his business, but his business got so tough a couple of different times over, the course of, 10, 15 years that he got a job so that he could sustain his business. I'm not saying that all of you would have to go through that, but I'm just telling you, the whole moral of this story, I'm going to go back to it, is quit wishing things were easier and wish that you were better. You need to grow stronger. You need to get more skills. If you're struggling in your business, there's probably a skill that you need to learn. There's a lot of different aspects of running a business. Maybe some of you are incredible sales and marketers, but you suck when it comes to accounting. and you're not very good at hiring and training employees. Maybe some of you are fantastic at hiring and training employees, and you're great with accounting, but you couldn't sell, a bottle of water to a guy out in the middle of the desert. Well, then you probably need to learn the skill of selling. I'll be honest with you. I would rather have the skill of selling and suck at accounting and admin work, because that can be hired out very easily. A lot of times, in order to have a good sales force, in order to have a good sales team, you have to be pretty good at selling yourself. So, once again, I'm kind of on a tangent here. We're over an hour. I know I've been going shorter on these things, but there's probably a lot of you that are like, well, I don't want to learn how to sell. I don't like selling. I don't like selling. Just, let's face it. When you go into a room of 1,000 people, just 1,000 people show up in an event for some reason. If the person on stage says, hey, everybody that loves to sell, raise your hand, out of 1,000 people, especially if it's just a general, like if you got people that are walking in there from McDonald's, you got people that have jobs at Safeway, you got some people that are working at car dealerships, you got some, people in insurance, you got some people in healthcare, you got doctors, lawyers, accountants. Like if you just had 1,000 random people show up and you asked them from the stage, how many of you love to sell? You probably get, in my opinion, somewhere around maybe 50 people, 25 to 50 people that would raise their hand. So what is that? Out of 1,000 people, 50 people would be 5%. I also would guarantee you that if you took a look at the average income of those 1,000 people, that the 50 people that raise their hand that love to sell are probably in the top 1 to 200 of money earners. So if you took those 1,000 people and you figured out how much the richest person made all the way down to how much does the poorest person make out of those 1,000, I would be willing to bet you that most of the 50 people that raised their hand and said that they like to sell are going to be in the top 200. And probably the top 5 or 10 of those 50 are probably going to be in the top 25 of the 1,000. There's very few skills in life that will make you more money than being able to sell and persuade. And we talked about that on a video a few weeks ago about what that means. But to clarify, for those of you that are like, well, I don't want to be a salesperson because salespeople are slimy. Salespeople are trying to talk you into spending your money on stuff that you don't need. No, once again, that goes right back to the rich people are greedy. Salespeople are not bad people. If there was no salespeople, the world wouldn't exist. We only have the ability to go through life. For those of you that hate selling, the only reason you can have a life worth living is because of the people that don't hate selling. Because you wouldn't have an automobile to drive if there wasn't people that were selling. Do you realize you wouldn't be able to go get an x-ray at a hospital if there wasn't a medical equipment salesman that when x-rays, x-ray machines started getting produced, you know how they ended up in hospitals? People took a small x-ray machine, and the salesperson would go from hospital to doctor's office, showing them, hey, look at this, and pulling out the x-ray machine and showing them on the screen how their arm, you can see my bone is not broken here. That's how x-ray machines got into hospitals. If there was no salespeople, we wouldn't have x-ray machines. Like if there was no salespeople, you wouldn't have a Starbucks to go to. Do you realize that the very first Starbucks, somebody had to come up with that idea? And then guess what they had to do? The first thing they had to do after they had the idea for Starbucks, they had to go sell somebody on the idea of it working and raise the money, because I guarantee you the guy that decided to build Starbucks wasn't sitting around on $1 billion bankroll and he just went and funded Starbucks himself. No, he went and raised money from his friends and his family and his coworkers and raised millions of dollars in order to launch the very first Starbucks. So for those of you that don't want to sell, I'm telling you, maybe this might be the best part of the whole hour and a half that we spend together. Maybe you ought to look at learning some sales and persuasion, because selling isn't getting somebody else to do something that is not to their benefit for your benefit. Selling is to help somebody make a decision that is for their benefit. And then you also end up being somebody that benefits from it also. But I would tell you, and I mentioned this the other day, like if you have somebody walk in, you're a car salesman, you have somebody walk in and they tell you, hey, we're married, we have 4 kids, and we're looking for a good minivan. And that day, let's say that your car dealership, there's a Corvette on the lot, and your boss has made a contest. And if you sell the Corvette, you're going to make 5 times the normal commission on that car. If you try to take that family that's got 4 kids and the husband and wife are there, and you try to take them over and sell them the Corvette, then you shouldn't be in sales. You should lose your job. That's not being a salesperson. Being a good salesperson isn't taking somebody that needs a minivan and talking them into a Corvette. Being a good salesman is showing them the minivan that is going to solve all of their problems. And then inevitably, towards the end of the transaction, people naturally have indecisions. So when that mom and dad says, gosh, I don't know if this is the right minivan, if, blah, 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 that's when you say, hey guys, we know you need a minivan. There's no doubt you're going to get a minivan. So that's not a question anymore. You're going to get a minivan. So what do we got to do to make sure that this is the right one, that this is the fit for your family? And they say, well, gosh, that minivan was great, but it didn't have this, this, and this. And we really want this, this, and this. And you say, oh, okay, I see the problem. No problem. I understand. You're right. That one isn't a good fit. Let's go show you this one over here, because this one has this, this, and this. And that's something else about being a good salesperson. A good salesperson wouldn't have had that problem, because the good salesperson would have asked this man and wife more questions. And they would have realized that this first minivan wasn't a good fit, because they would have asked enough questions and been interested enough in this family's situation, what their real problems were. Like when somebody comes in and says, hey, we want a minivan, we got 4 kids. You don't just say, okay, great, let me go show you this one. You got to ask more questions. Like, great, okay, what is your main use? Like, are you guys just going to be using it to go back and forth to school? Like, is there any sports involved? Oh, yeah, all 4 of the kids play soccer. Oh, yeah, we're going to be making, road trips where we're going to be going from Florida to Washington State. We're going to be driving across the country. Well, there's going to be different minivans that are going to be better for a family that's going to be doing a bunch of sports, and they need more room for all of the soccer balls and the gear. And obviously the comfortability, you need a different level of comfortability in a minivan. If you're just driving 5 miles to and from school with your kids, then you're going to need, if you're traveling across the country, you're going to need a minivan that's got a rack on top where you can put luggage and bikes, and you know what I mean? Like there's a million different things. And part of being a good salesperson is helping the person that comes to you in whatever area. I know, Dave Bernstein or Eric Bernstein, I don't know if he's here today, but I know he's a real estate agent. He was here this morning. Eric is the same way. When he meets a family and they're trying to buy a house, he doesn't base what house they should buy off of what he thinks would be a good house for them. He gets to know them and figures out, like, some people might really love a 1-story home. Some people might be older. Like I'm 52. I kind of like living on a flat 1-story home in some ways. So if I was going to go buy a house and I told the realtor, hey, I want a Rambler, I want a 1-story house, about the time the realtor took me to about the 3rd place that had 2 stories, 3 stories, I'd probably be looking for a new realtor. So anyways, I digress. But what I'm trying to say here, guys, is there's something holding you back. If you're not where you want to be financially in your life, there's a skill that you haven't learned yet that's holding you back. In business, another huge one is marketing. So there's a lot of people that start a business and they do very well in the beginning of the business, but then it has a ceiling. They're like, why have I only made 50 grand, 100 grand a year for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Why am I not $1 million or multi-million-dollar company? Well, the reason most of the time is marketing. So there's a lot of business owners out there that are making $50,000 or $100,000 a year, and the skill that they need to learn, how do you go put ads out on Facebook and YouTube? How do you generate more leads for your business? Because the fact of the matter is, I think you guys would all agree with this, if you're getting 10 new leads a month from referrals and however you do your business, and off of those 10 new leads, say you're getting one client, and that's making you $10,000, a month. And now, over the course of a year, that gets you 12 clients. You made $120,000 that year. I think you would all agree that if you could go from 10 leads to 100 leads, it only makes sense logically that you would go from $10,000 a month in sales to $100,000 a month, from $120,000 a year annual income to $1.2 million. But most of you don't know how to go from 10 leads to 100 because you've never figured out sales and marketing and funnels and, lead magnets. A lead magnet is where, like, say, for instance, for me, I do an Instagram post and it says, DM me the word freedom if you would like my 7-step PDF for free on how to build a 7-figure crypto portfolio. That's a lead magnet. So people see my little reel, my short clip on Instagram that's talking about cryptocurrency and building wealth. And then at the end of it, I'm like, DM me the word freedom for my 7-step plan on how to create a 7-figure portfolio in cryptocurrency, totally free to you. So now when that person comes into my DM and they type the word freedom, that gives me a new person to build a relationship with. That gives me a new person to talk to about one-on-one coaching. That gives me a new person to talk to about Texas coin miners. That gives me a new person to talk to about the Minotaur trading bots. That gives me a new person to, invite into the YouTube channel. There's a lot of you that don't know how to do those types of things. That could be the skill that's holding you back from $1 million business and keeping you at $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 business. My point is there's something that you're doing or not doing that is holding you back from getting to the level that you want to be at. Even in cryptocurrency, there's different levels of cryptocurrency. If the only thing you've ever done is set up a Coinbase account and buy stuff on Coinbase, that's fantastic. I'm glad. That's an incredible place to start. But at some point in time, you probably ought to learn what MetaMask is all about. What a hardware wallet is, what a ledger is. I love Coinbase, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if you create $1 million, $2 million, $5 million portfolio, that I think it's smart that you're keeping it all on Coinbase. Coinbase can freeze your funds. It's like a bank. You can wake up one morning, try to log into your Coinbase, and they have frozen your assets. So in my opinion, having all of your money on Coinbase ain't smart. The other thing about that is, you can get into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you can get into HBAR. You can get into some tokens that are going to make you some money. But are you going to get into the next, 100x, 500x, 1000x token? Probably not. I don't think by the time most tokens get to Coinbase, I think that the ability for them to 500x or 1000x is probably relatively slim. I mean, potentially if you're holding something for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe, but if you're looking for something that's going to do 25, 50, 100x in the next 6 months, I think your odds of that are pretty slim. The other thing is you're kind of limited. Coinbase hates Binance Smart Chain. They hate, CZ and Binance. So guess what? They don't support almost any tokens that are on the Binance Smart Chain network. I I don't even know if they support BNB, to be honest with you. I don't even know if you can buy BNB on Coinbase. I don't think you can. Because when we were launching the AGAPE token, we had to teach people to buy Polygon and move it over to their MetaMask on the Polygon network and then bridge it from Polygon over to Binance Smart Chain. And if people could just buy the Binance token and send it to their Binance MetaMask, we wouldn't have had to do that. So like Coinbase hates Binance so bad that you can't even buy any of the Binance Smart Chain tokens on Coinbase, even the good ones like BNB. BNB is a top 10 token, I think. I don't know, number 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. You can't buy it on Coinbase because they hate Binance. And so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff that you can't buy. You can buy Solana on Coinbase, but you can't buy very many tokens that are on the Solana network. My point is, cryptocurrency investing is no different. You're going to want to learn. If you've been doing crypto for 2 years and you've never branched out and created a MetaMask account, that's probably a skill that you should be learning. At some point in time, maybe should you learn how to trade, add a little trading into your repertoire? Probably. You should at least know how to do it. You should at least have a BYDFi or a MEXC or a Binance US. You should have some exchanges that you can do some trading on. Anyway, I digress. I think I've said everything that I want to say for today. We've been here for closing in on an hour and a half. Hopefully you guys got a little bit of value out of what I was saying. I know I was all over the place today. If I was going to name this video, I don't even know what I would call it because I talked about so many different things. It was pretty random. But hopefully if you stuck with me from the start to the finish, you learned some valuable things. And hopefully some of you, I forgot to mention this, but man, if you were in a position where you could take some notes, hopefully you took some notes. And if you didn't, maybe go back and watch this thing at like 2x speed and take a few notes and remind yourself about some of the things, that I talked about today. And, with that, guys, I'm looking forward to having a great little trader session with you tomorrow. I've had a few trades get liquidated, but I've also got some trades that I'm right smack dab in the middle of. Things are going, really good in a lot of ways with the trading. I'll probably talk about Texitcoin a little bit tomorrow. Had another fantastic week last week with Texitcoin. I've got 23 Texitcoin miners that are producing about $100 a day in passive income for me. Think about that right there. August 22nd, I had 0. And then I got 9 plus 2 free. So I started with 11 on August 22nd. I've earned 12 new miners for free. So now I have 23 miners and they're producing $100 a day in income. Like right now, if I wanted to, every single day at about 5 o'clock my time at night, I could go sell 100 Texitcoins. They just got listed on a couple new exchanges. They were already liquid and on a couple of exchanges, but they're now liquid on a couple more exchanges. They're getting ready to be on MEXC Global. So I literally can, in a matter of 2 minutes, 5 minutes, take the Texitcoins, send them to an exchange, sell them, send the USDC over to my Coinbase wallet, and then transfer that money out into my bank account in a matter of minutes, $100 a day. In just over a month, I've created $100 a day, a $3,000 a month income. And that's with the Texitcoin sitting at around $5. As this thing goes to 10, 20, 30, I've been talking to a few of you about an $80 Texitcoin. That's going to be like an incredible source of income. But that also, if you're one of those people that's just stuck on Coinbase, that's never learned how to send tokens off of Coinbase into a private wallet, you've never used an exchange other than Coinbase, you've never used a decentralized exchange, and so on and so forth, this Texitcoin stuff would be pretty scary. So there's a lot of different reasons that you want to increase your skills and go further down the rabbit hole. But I'm just saying, I'm looking forward to showing you some more information on my trades and some stuff that's going on tomorrow. So, with that, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Vanish. Thank you, Tim G. Thank you, Nyan. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank all of you. Thank you, Deadwood, for being here. Christine, thank you for being here. All of you that spent this last, hour and a half with me. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. I appreciate and love you all very, very much. And I very much look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. So with that, folks, have an incredible rest of your Monday. Be blessed. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.